It's Kisha here with Defending the Early Years podcast. We'll be focusing on amplifying the voices of early childhood educators, advocates, and all of those who love children. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Defending the Early Years podcast with Kisha Reed. Today, I am visited by one of my, I would say, my old-time virtual friends, Leigh Ann Yuen of Garden Gate Child Development Center. Hello, Leigh Ann.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me, Kisha.
I am really looking forward to this for our listeners and also for myself, because I'm always inspired by your work. From day one that I discovered you, let me tell you how I identify my early discoverance of your program. And I bet you hear this a lot. The umbrella. Have you heard that before? The umbrella.
No, I have not, but the umbrella is right behind me, hanging from the ceiling.
Yes. And the umbrella has been around for a long time. So if you can tell us a little bit about what it is you do, and why you're here today.
Sure, thanks. I am the director and the founder and the lead teacher at Garden Gate Child Development Center, which is a very small private nonprofit program on Martha's Vineyard. We're on an island off the coast of Massachusetts, and we have been around for over 20 years. And our program is a small program with toddlers, a toddler classroom, a preschool classroom, and just recently, due to COVID, we've extended to a third classroom. And we are play-based, Reggio-inspired, nature-based, art-based program for kids.
Yes, to all of that. To all of that. And one of the things that really inspires me about your program is the work that you do in the community. I see a lot of integrating the children, in with the world around them, which is what we should all be doing, right? Isn't this like work that we should all be doing?
Right, exactly. And we're fortunate enough to be located in a small community where all those community connections are a priority for most of the people that live here. So it's easy to reach out and connect with others in the community. Although I feel like in the last couple of years, it's really become an organizational priority for us. And it's been a kind of a driving force in how we are evolving as an organization and a program.
See, that is interesting to me because for me on my end, it's been really tough to do anything outside of our doors, really, almost anything outside of our classrooms because of COVID. So while I had this big lofty goal and excitement about moving into a church, a shared space where we would collaborate as a community and have someone to do all this outreach with us and really, go down that road of being embedded in the community and kind of taking the children outside of our doors, we really have been, a speed bump has been put in front of that with COVID because we just feel so locked into our own space. How have you been able to get around some of those parameters?
Well, we really, a lot of people talk about the silver linings of COVID, and we have really been fortunate enough to realize some silver linings in all of this. And one of them was right at the beginning of COVID and trying to figure out how we were going to reopen. We were required by new licensing regulations to have more square footage per kid. So in order to bring back all of our families, we needed to find an auxiliary space. And we had a long-term relationship with our local community art center, which has art classes for kids all the way through adults. And we had done art shows with them before and hosted one of our retreats here. But the art center was closed for COVID, so they didn't have anything going on their campus. They were feeling, the depression and the anxiety of COVID coming. And when we reached out to them to ask if we could use one of their spaces for an auxiliary classroom, they said yes immediately. And they were so happy to have us on their campus because it brought life and energy to a place that otherwise kind of felt like a ghost town because of COVID.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, that is a silver lining. And since then, have they reopened and now this collaboration has taken root?
Definitely. They have, they've slowly reopened in this past year, trying to figure out how to do it within all the COVID parameters. And one of the things that we did when we reopened for COVID was to shorten our hours, because we didn't want our teachers to be burnt out. We weren't sure how everything was going to go. So we shortened our hours, and it was one of the things that we felt parents wanted our longer hours. They needed the care in the later afternoons and all of that, but we just weren't ready to do it. And one of the ways that we've collaborated with the Art Center is that they have opened up their after school art programs, and primarily our preschoolers make up their preschool art program. So our parents and our kids have after school care, and Featherstone has a built-in population for their after-school art program. And as far as COVID safety and all that thing goes, we feel confident because it's pretty much the same pod of kids that are traveling from here across the yard to the other classroom to the children's studio there. And it's just opened up our eyes and the eyes of the Art Center to how far potential collaboration and participation in each other's programs can go.
I love that. I really do. And like you said, it's one of those things that with COVID, we have to start looking at things from a different lens. We're almost, it's weird because we're separated, but also forced to really depend on each other in so many different ways and to lean on each other in so many different ways to get through this pandemic. That is, it's inspiring to me. And actually recently, there has been a development in the town that I'm in where there's going to be, and this made me think of you and your program, there's going to be an arts, kind of like an art center. I think they're calling it a cultural arts center directly across the street from our school. So when I heard about that opening, I immediately thought about you and that collaboration because I knew you had moved into that space, and just thinking of ways that I can bring our program into the community a bit more. There are two programs now, two facilities you guys have.
Yeah, we have. Our former location is in the town next to where the Art Center is. So we started out there. We've been there for years and years and years, and it was a rental space that belonged to grandparents of a former student of ours. And our lease was coming to an end with them, and we were looking for a new space. So currently we're in both locations, but as of September, that entire program will move over here to the Featherstone campus. And it's been really hard operating two programs in two separate spaces. So we're really looking forward to all being back together.
Wow, that is wonderful. So when you say that you guys are arts based and nature based and Reggio inspired, what does that mean for our listeners? Because we're going to have all types of people listening to this podcast. It may be people who don't know what any of that means. It may be parents who are looking and not sure what it is they're looking for their child. So can you tell us a little bit about what that means to your program?
Definitely. When we started, we opened up, Dawn Warner is my co-director, and she and I, along with another woman in 1999, decided that we wanted to open up our own program. We were working in other programs and were a little bit frustrated and felt like we were ready to take the chance and try it on our own. So when we first opened, we really were, we used to call ourselves the meat and potatoes daycare. And we were just there for families. We wanted to be there for the kids. We didn't really have any specific agenda. We definitely had a play-based philosophy in the sense that most of our day and curriculum centered around the children's play. And we had a little bit of experience with the Reggio Emilia approach through just past experiences that we had. I had the great opportunity to see the 100 Languages of Children exhibit in Boston in the late 80s, I think it was. So the Reggio approach as a approach and a philosophy has always influenced my teaching to some degree. So we continued to pursue that a little bit more. At the very beginning of those times, one of the greatest influences that we had in our program was Bev Boss. And we were able to go to a few different workshops and see her speak, which was hugely inspiring and influential in our program. And then we were able to go to some more specific conferences at Lesley University in Cambridge, Mass, that were focused on Reggio Emilia. Leila Gandini was on the faculty there and would always be a participant in these conferences there. And that really kind of pushed us more in that direction to think about the Reggio approach and its influences. At the same time that was happening, just by chance, really, the population of families that we had in our program, many of the parents were professional artists in our community. So we had a professional watercolor artist, we had a professional sculptor, we had a professional stained glass artist. And they were parents in our program. They wanted to volunteer. They wanted to come help in the classroom. We were learning more and more about Reggio and using the arts as a creative communication tool for learning. And so it all kind of collided at that point.
Wow.
Yeah.
Love about that. What I love about that is the organic forming of that culture and community. You know what I mean? Like, you guys became a arts-based school because of the arts-based community that wrapped itself around you. That is, to me, it is total place-based education, right? It's a total leaning on the community through and through. That's what I always get from anything I see from you. Is it's like it's woven into the program in such a way that I honestly haven't experienced in my own work and out and like looking out into other programs. It's something that I haven't experienced. So I guess for me, what I want to get out of this episode is I want you to tell me all your secrets. Like, no. But what I got out of that is that we should be, and I do try to do this, but I think I'm going to go and do this in a different way now after talking to you, but really getting to know what it is, not just what our parents do, but what are their passions? What are their talents? What are the things that they would enjoy sharing, right, with the program? Because I think that's where you're going to get that, that sense of culture that I'm in collaboration and community and family that I'm getting from your program. And who knows what that will, who knows what that will look like. And it may look different year to year. Do you find that that organic collaboration shifts and changes over time?
It does to some degree, but as we've evolved as a program, I feel our focus has become more cemented in who we are, right? Like, it's like we're branded. At the beginning, it was a little more organic, and now
those roots are laid, huh?
yeah, and it does shift from time to time, but I think as we progressed and we developed a stronger arts focus, we attracted families that had a stronger art focus, and it kind of built on each other in that way. But it is definitely really getting to know your parents and inviting them in and getting to know them, because one of those parents that was there at that time when this kind of thing was happening, she ended up, we had a lot of those parents come and work in the classroom, but this one parent, actually, we ended up hiring her, and she was a professional mixed media artist and didn't have any experience working with kids. But when she would come into the classroom, she clearly had a talent for working with kids and sharing her passion with kids. And she ended up working as our studio teacher for probably about 18 years.
Oh, see, that's wonderful. And that's where I've found several teachers, was just by getting to know the families and the parents and seeing who has that natural ability and that passion. So that's pretty awesome. I love that. My next thing that I wanted to mention or touch on is, I know that annually, or at least it feels like annually, your team has a focus or a question or something to reflect upon. what is that for this year?
I don't know if we have one this year. Well,
This
I guess
year it's like getting through.
yeah,
Getting through
exactly.
this.
Well, it is getting through this, and for us, because we are making a big transition, I think that since you asked that, I don't think we've discussed it formally as a staff, but I'm putting together our annual report for 2021, and the theme of that report was reimagining childhood and reimagining early childhood education programs. So I think that's what we have been doing. We just we have a couple of staff development days that we do every year, and we just had one in November. And the focus on that program was reimagining kindergarten, because we are launching a brand new private kindergarten program, and
Wonderful.
we are really looking at what that can look like for young children and what they need. So our focus for our staff development day was really on looking at education and education reform at an early childhood level, and what that can mean for kids.
What it can look like, and being a part of the community, outside in the community, and having children out in the world as citizens, I think is something that we need to lean on heavily, because that to me will change the perception of what childhood is and what early childhood education is. Because right now I think people outside of the walls of our programs don't know. They don't realize what children are capable of. They don't realize what children need. They don't realize what quality early childhood education that is child focused and child centered can look like. So, for example, when we go out into the forest, we have to take a little walk to get to the forest. And from the school, through a neighborhood, through a park, around the corner, and then to the forest. And in that time, moving from school to the forest, the amount of people that we encounter as we go, and as the children walk freely and run and stop and smell flowers and have conversations and see puppies and all of those things, those interactions that we have, it seems simple, but it is so important to me to have people just see children being children, not in a line, not holding hands, not like, marching in line, but just see children frolicking together, being children. And for me in the community, in my neighborhood, I don't see children running around playing like I did when I was a child. So I just don't know that there's that much, that many examples of kids just being kids out in the open. So I like to take them outside of the school, just if not for them to enjoy themselves, of course, but for other people to see them enjoying themselves and just being kids and having that freedom to just go. So I just love the concept of being within a facility where other people are going to see the children and they're going to be a part of the community. I noticed that you guys do, I believe it's an art show, or they're involved in some community art experience.
I just want to touch on what you just said though too, because it's the feedback that we got from Featherstone Center for the Arts last year during COVID, when we were the only ones on campus with the executive director and the, I guess, groundskeeper. And they said that hearing the kids, being themselves, their authentic selves, running up and down the hill, playing however they were playing, was what really got them through all of those months of COVID. And they were so grateful for just the kids to be on campus, honestly. And it made a huge difference for them. They were so grateful that the kids were here. Wow.
That is.
But I will go back to the art show. The art show that we've done has been, we've done them a few different places in the community. One time it was in a conference room at one of the hotels on the island. But most of them have been here at Featherstone over probably the last 12 years. We've done shows here, and they've been all different topics of shows that we've done. Some were just showcasing a particular project that kids had worked on. But over time, they became more focused to be a demonstration of advocacy for kids and what they're capable of. So I think it's one of the things that really strengthened our relationship with the Art Center here, because they saw that firsthand. Like, they saw the show that was put up with the kids' work, and the kids' work framed in a way that really highlighted their competencies. And then they also got to see all of the people that came in to see the show, and they got to see the reaction from the audience of parents or community members that came and saw the work of the kids. So it was really powerful. And I think, I mean, a lot of that for us came from our inspiration from the Reggio approach. But I do remember a friend of mine many, many years ago who was first learning about Reggio, and I had a bit more experience with it at the time than she did. And she said, "This is so amazing. It's such a philosophy based on advocacy."
Yes, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
That is
and
like,
it just,
go ahead, girl.
It wasn't what I would have thought of off the top of my head at that moment. And ever since she has said that, I'm like, that is the number one thing that I see from Reggio is advocacy for kids.
Yep. And it's out there for others to see. And that is, I think, the power that your program has had for me over the internet. I mean, just seeing the photos and hearing the conversations and dialogues that you share and what you write about them and your documentation. And that, I mean, I was just talking with someone else talking about the web, the web that grows and grows and grows of this information that we're privy to now that we weren't before. You know, it's so easy to see. You can read a book and you can look at photos, but when you're able to get in a community of people who are sharing dialogue behind all of that and their own real life experiences, and you're creating these relationships across the world, really, in advocacy for children and what they're capable of, that is powerful. And I mean, I really do want to thank you for being so open with sharing all of the work that you do with the children. And through this whole pandemic, just watching you guys shift to being outdoors mostly. I know you've always been a very big one outdoors, but being outdoors mostly. And you went through a period where you were moving and you were like, well, we don't have all of our stuff. And wow. Do you want to talk to us about what you learned? And it's kind of what I learned when I moved to a commercial space from a home, and we were still at the home and all of our stuff was at the commercial space. And we just had like just a few things. And it was the best summer ever. Like, I learned so much from that time period. So do you want to talk a little bit about what that was like?
Yeah, we're never going back. we're never filling up our classrooms with stuff again. We moved into this space as an auxiliary classroom. We knew it was temporary, so we didn't really want to schlep a lot of stuff over here. And with COVID protocols, especially right when we reopened in 2020, we didn't want materials that kids were going to be sharing with each other and passing back and forth. So we were really looking at materials for our space that we called it, it had a one-way direction. So we took in consumable materials that kids could create something with and then take home, so that everybody could create their own baby doll out of materials, and then that would be theirs that they would want to use because they had created it and they weren't interested. Everyone had one, so they didn't need to fight over a particular one, and then they could take it home. So that was kind of our response to sharing materials during COVID, to kind of give it this flow, like materials came in and then went out, and it wasn't a lot of back and forth with materials. And we were located in this beautiful space in an adult focused art studio space that was designed for creativity. And it's got beautiful lighting, and there's a meadow outside our window and a pasture with cows, and a baby cow was born in October. And it's very inspiring. So we didn't need a lot of stuff to fill up the space. So we have blocks. We have actual unit blocks, and we did add a few magnet-tiles. And other than that, we don't have any toys at all. We, when I talk about baby dolls, we had outdoors, we had created what many people know of as bottle babies, which are just big, large juice bottles or soda bottles filled with colored water and maybe some glitter or something that kids can carry around as baby dolls, and the kids love them. But coming inside to our studio space, I didn't really want all those 2-liter bottles of water being tossed around indoors. So the kids wanted to bring them in. We said, well, why don't you find something else in here that you can use to make a baby doll? And some parent who was a caterer had donated a crate of like 8-inch, 9-inch pillar candles, just plain white candles, and but you know, fat pillars, and they were in a crate. So one of the kids decided to use those. They were kind of the same shape as the bottles, and they made them into baby dolls. And it was so interesting to see how the group of children shared this one idea with each other and came to an agreement as a community that those were the babies. And they ended up taking these babies on all sorts of adventures. They used masking tape to dress them, and they are the babies in our classroom. So much so that just recently, one of the children was really interested in Jurassic World and dinosaurs, and he built this amazing Jurassic World. And he's like, come see what I've done, come see what I've done. And I go to look, and he's in this crate. He has all of those candles with all of their masking tape colors and everything all over them. And he says, I'm pretending the babies are dinosaurs.
Not the candles.
Not the candles. And
I love that.
Yeah. It's been so fascinating to watch how these kids can create whatever they need. And there's no limitation.
Decide as a community what role it will play in their play.
Exactly.
It shows you how organized and structured play actually is, right? And what a language it is.
Yeah. And we're now at the second year in the space, and we have 2 new children this year who weren't with us last year. So it's been really interesting to see how those older kids are teaching those newer kids about the rules of our space and how it works. And it's really all them, because I'm not going to teach them that those candles are actually babies. But they know it, they've learned it. So it's really interesting to see what they can do on their own. And we have a small fenced in outdoor space here that was a temporary space that they allowed us to fence when we moved in here last year. But other than that, we're on a campus that includes 5 acres of property. So most of the time we're not within our little fenced area, but we're out somewhere else. And when we're out somewhere else on the campus, we don't have any materials with us other than the sticks and, you know, the lichen and whatever they find. And the children will spend hours out there.
We bring nothing into the forest, nothing but ourselves. And they come up with all kinds of things. And that's what play is. You know, you create it. It is born from the imagination of one child, and then it's shared with another, and then another, and then another. And together they collaborate and create these amazing play scenarios. And we bring our first aid kit, our water bottles, our lunches, and ourselves. And every time even just across the street into the field, we don't bring anything, nothing. And it's intentional because the play, I love loose parts, and we have them all over our playground, and they do wonderful things with them. But I think there's something different that happens when you put children in a forest and they have to just use the land to be creative. It's just a shift in a different type of play. They're doing the same things, but they're having to start from scratch almost. They have to get a stick and, like that candle, decide what the stick is going to be and how it's going to, what are the roles of this stick within our play. So that's that critical thinking and that collaboration and all of that sharing of ideas that has to happen for all of them to be on the same page and make that play go smoothly, that is priceless.
Yeah. Yeah. And just the communication that has to happen to be able to get that idea. There's no physical idea there. And a lot of the times there is not even a physical object that is the baby. They just know the baby's right there, you know. That's it.
Either that or you're the baby. I'm the big sister and you're the baby.
Right. Yeah. And they're so much more focused on each other. There, you know, there's very little conflict. And when there is, they just work it out because they are each other's playmates, you know, like that's what they're playing with each other. They're not playing with a toy. So they have become so much more aware of each other and aware of each other's needs and sensitivities and what's going to get somebody out of their funk or what's going to push somebody off their limits, you know, and they just understand each other so much better. And yeah, it's amazing.
It is amazing. And I witnessed that this past summer. I mean, I witnessed it the whole last year when we spent lots and lots and lots of our time. I mean, pretty much 100% outdoors. But I witnessed it last summer when we combined our school age group with our preschool group, and just watching them organize and maintain such deep, intricate play in a mixed age group setting was just fascinating. And I just watched and observed and documented and just couldn't get enough of it. But I remember doing that when I was a child. Like there was no adult telling us how to play. And we didn't have, I mean, honestly, the only materials we had were materials that we literally pulled out of the dumpster and drug into the woods to make a clubhouse. You know, it wasn't, I don't remember, other than my big wheel, I don't remember ever bringing, even myself as a child with a choice, bringing any toys outside to play with. It was just me running door to door to get my friends to go run into the forest with I don't know that we even had a plan as we ran in, unless it was leftover from the day before, you know. You just go in and the ideas start flowing. So I really do think there is value to not having stuff, you know, not having the stuff that we already agree that loose parts that are open-ended, that don't have a prescribed way to use them, are important tools.
Yeah.
And the same thing goes for just plain old nature. Just go out there and make it up. Go out there and enjoy what we have on the earth as a resource already. Wow. So how can people find out more about your program? Because it's, like I said before, and I'll say a million times, it is inspirational.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that. It's amazing to me how long you and I have known each other, just, you know, via the internet and, you know, the connections that we make. Well, yeah, we did for about 5 minutes. Yes. Yep. But I think the communities and the collaboration that can happen just virtually online has been amazing. And we have really seen that we have a Facebook page. Garden Gate CDC is on Facebook and on Instagram. Our website is gardengatemv.org for Martha's Vineyard. And our community has just grown so enormously just through the connections that we've made online, which has been pretty amazing to us. And we've had some really great connections that have come from it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for talking to us and telling us a little bit about your program. And I hope that everyone goes and looks up Garden Gate Child Development Center for some inspiration and collaboration. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. It was great to be here.
Bye-bye, everybody. All right. And that was another episode of the Defending the Early Years podcast. Defending the Early Years works to support the rights and needs of young children nationally. Learn more at DEY.org. Pay us a visit, sign up for our newsletter, or connect with us on social media.
Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.